throw your life away on, with Andrew Reed and the Liberation. It's a serious question, one worth pondering. Am I living the life I want, an intelligent life, or something else? How can I have a better experience of life? These are some of the questions explored in this series of messages without the brag and the advertisement, getting beyond even human institutions and society, into the wilderness, nature, the reality of how life actually operates on this planet. These messages range from intimate recordings from the awakened forest to concerts, national conferences, and broadcasts on a wide array of philosophical topics.
Hello, everybody. This message is from a CEO retreat at the J House, or the Japanese house, that we recently had. And this is where CEOs from all across the country fly in, and we go through some of the various MVI or multi-view methodologies and our really conventions that we've developed or evolved over the years that help organizations work. And I think this is useful information really for anybody, because if you want to accomplish something in life, for example, to start an organization or a company, or if you're going to advance into a leadership position, or if you just simply want a better quality of life as an individual, there's a lot of ideas that are shared in this message that I think would be quite helpful. And a major thrust of it has to do with quality. So you might say this is a quality message. And with that said, quality comes from where? It comes from within a person. And I think that's as important point as anything in this message. So without further ado, here is the CEO Retreat, Day 1.
Welcome to the J House, or the Japan House. It survived the fire, the Black Cove fires that wiped out so many of my neighbors, 13 of my buildings. Of course, that's after being cut off for 6 months as you all crossed the bridge to get here. And anyway, we've been through something. But the thing about tough hits and things like that, what do? They harden us to a certain extent. We get some backbone about what life's about and all that. We also are softened at the same time. You know, we allow it to do its work. And the energy in the rooms probably, I probably absorbed that. We had, again, the Special Forces, Green Berets did the last trainings here over multiple days. Of course, and why are they here? Well, they saw, of all the places they went to help out in the disaster relief, this was the most organized. They had never seen a civilian population organized and become as efficient. And they said, who's behind this? Now, obviously, there's a couple of us that did it. This was actually made into a store. I made it into a store because people can't go in the store. I mean, all our stuff's coming in by helicopter and a pulley system. And we cut LZs and stuff, a couple of them, just depending on the direction of the wind. But, we were just our own people, all 78 people up here. And so that's how they got here. And, of course, I'll be going down to Bragg to teach down there because they need System 7, too. They brought a bunch of their generals and colonels up here. So it's got the Green Beret energy. And I probably assimilated some of that. But I thank you all for being here. And we got a great Iowa contingency. In some mysterious form, a lot of us, I'm from, like Corn County, Iowa. And we got a lot of us here. But we're from all over the country, large companies, mid-sized, as well as some small, so a great range. But again, we're still in this marvelous movement, which, and I do look at it still as a movement, even though we've become very corporatized. And that's actually one of the things you want to defeat in a culture, is the corporateness. Because let's face it, for most clinicians, that's a turnoff. And how do you do that elegantly to operate in this highly standardized way without neutering out the feel of what everything is about? So the CEO retreat, and this feels very retreat-like. It actually feels more retreat-like than the burnt-down multi-million-dollar studio. But it's a different experience because it's a different energy in all this. And I had some music stuff over in Japan and came back, and I was so inspired that I thought, wow, we got to have a Japan house, because these are people of discipline and honor and meticulousness. And that explains so much of their success. When you think of a country that's devoid of almost all natural resources, but yet they have usually the second, third, or fourth top economy in the world. Where does it come from? It comes from the people and the quality of the people. And the one thing I did want to make or talk about is this idea of quality. Because people talk a good game about quality, they give lip service to quality, but yet they don't do quality. And we know that from, again, measuring, again, 989 data elements with 922 cross calculations from 1,000 hospices every single month. They don't know what quality is. Not really. And when I'm talking about quality, I'm talking about world-class quality. Well, where does quality come from? It comes from within here. It comes from within each of us. I'll say a vision of quality, since being a CEO has so much to do with where we're going and the ideas, the unseen things in our heads of where we want to go. But it comes from the quality of the human being first. And thus, quality flows out of us, because our lives don't so much happen to us as much as they flow out of us. All our results in life, at least 50% of it is dictated by our human will, our desires, and the other is the dance we play with the external world that burns down things and kills bridges and that are outside of our control. But 50% is a huge amount. So the challenge here is to cultivate this quality, which can be languaged as meticulousness, obsession. You catch an employee saying good enough, and it should prick you. Or that makes sense, kind of, or that's a good deal. Rather than the person of brilliance that is working at something and says, that's it, with paying no attention to the clock. But it has to start with that leader. I mean, and I think all the guys I had working over the last days or so in preparation for this, and again, I'll rip people's lungs out if it's not being done to a certain standard. I mean, but it has to do with that attention to just little things. Again, meticulousness is such a great word. And it also translates, obviously, into customer service, or as we would language it in the world-class world, of customer delight. Because even in our end-of-life care, we're talking about repeat business. where we endear ourselves to referral sources, right? And we have to be meticulous in our consideration of their experience. I know that I can win over, for example, a nursing home with almost a single phone call or leaving a single voice message where you so jar them that this is different. And when these people start to hear that you go, how many thousands of visits that you go without a single screw up, a single complaint. The record right now is 5,553, beating the former record of 4,222. Whereas a lot of hospices, they have screw ups every day, complaints every day, and think it's normal. I would fire, you have to almost have the attitude that you'll fire everybody in the organization and do the whole damn thing yourself. That's I think the attitude of the CEO that gets quality. And of course, phenomenal quality translates into phenomenal economics because you have both. Because when we know one thing about this world, it refuses to let things be mismanaged for long. All relationships need maintenance, every building, physical object, protoplasm, that's the human being is, all need maintenance, care, whatever, however you want to say it. And so that's an element of this idea of quality. So yes, I'm obsessed about quality and probably will be for the rest of my life. I know that in the formation of Multiview, David and I knew that customer service was a big thing. And this so applies to our hospices. And I don't know where it comes from. For myself, probably some insecurity latent deep within me. But this idea of being helpful, I mean, I have kids that go mow elderly people's lawns and shovel snow, and it's just Boy Scouts do a good turn daily. Helpfulness. And in this world, see, that's well, you have to realize. We say, well, yeah, this is the big challenge, but this is what makes success easy, or easier than we think. Yeah, you have to put in the hours, because if you're going to be meticulous, again, you're never going to be able to do it in 40 hours a week. It's going to take the 80, 100 sometimes. Hell, I don't even count. All I know is that I can come in after a weekend and I've already put my 40 hours starting the week, depending on what I'm obsessed with at the time, which is what? Focus. Quality? Yeah. So we'll language it so many different ways, but again, the quality of the most successful people in this world is the quality of focus, which can be languaged as self-discipline. Again, focus, self-regulation, but even love. Because normally you need to love what you're going to do to have enough energy to sustain that amount of effort. So quality that comes from within a person refusing to allow almost anything else. And I'll just say this, talk about self-control. And normally I'm I've got a lot of self-control. It's evident from all this. But yesterday morning, I came in and we had about 5 sixer guys and I lost it. Did I not, there, folks? You heard me talking like the Alaskan fisherman that I am. I mean, just because I was pissed. Because I had worked, almost nonstop for a week before coming in, and then all weekend completing, book things and all that, and cleaning and obviously just doing all the things that a CEO would do. And there's a point where you just break. And I got this Lost book because I've had so many pretty catastrophic hits in my life. And I just written about how a person breaks. And with that said, there's a time and place for it. There's a natural element. You forgive yourself. You try to get some forgiveness from others. but it comes out of caring. And so I think with most things, there's a deeper element of intention of what are you trying to accomplish in life. And so for doing this ministry of hospice, I mean, that's like one of the most holy grounds we are. And probably most of us have been working in hospice for some time. At some point, you've been touched on some sufficient level that what we're doing is worth throwing our life away on. Right? That we're in it forever. Or until the next vision hits us. Yeah. But it's certainly contributory. But yes, we'll go through this. Okay. We have our modest manual. It's only 750 pages. 41 pages. So we thin this thing down for us. And why is it this? And of course, there's 20 of these because MBI is meticulous about, well, we're Six Sigma, and you're a joke if you don't document things. And I ask hospices, let me see your operations manual. Oh, we don't do. Well, what's your training system look like? What's your testing? Let me see your labs. And they wonder why they suck, why they're 50 percentile. But this is a large one because the CEO has to know a lot. We almost have to know every function that's going on in the organization on some level so that we can intelligently supervise. But if we're really going to get enlightened, we're going to find that we're going to create conditions for success of self-regulation where people need very little supervision because that went out 20 years ago. And most of our work is being done autonomously anyway, so they have to learn how to self-regulate. So developing a workforce that requires very little supervision. But the system does it for us. And of course, that's going to come to our comp system is going to be included with that. The thing that people run from. And we are experts of experts on compensation. And your people development, or training systems, or whatever you want to say. Okay. So we have our modest manual here, and it's got a great index so you can find things. And it's got a great table of contents and all that. So lots in there. But we'll really hit the main points. But I'm talking fairly forcefully. I don't know where it comes from. right after Helene and stuff, I was pretty beat down. I mean, I'm just saying that I actually got some juice because my lungs had got burned up in the fire because I was working knowing me, I'm going to be right there with the forest fires. And I was working with them side by side. At that very moment, we had I was running the hose, and he says, we got to get out of it. We're going to die. And my barn just goes up because all the houses before had been incinerated. And it's like, God, can I get a couple things out of the house? And we grab a couple things. And then I come around with the truck to the conference center. That's where it's gated. And I thought, I need to unlock and at least, maybe it hasn't burned yet. And so I parked on, and I thought, I better not drive in because if something happens, I won't make it out. And I wouldn't have. I would have died if I would have made that mistake. But I'm pretty cool under pressure for the most part, Okay, park it here so at least they know approximately where my body is if something goes bad here. So then I went around the mountain, and there was the studio. It's a long drive, and there's the studio up on the hill, like engulfed in smoke. You could just barely see the outline, buildings on fire, and I was going to try to make it to get, hard drives or, maybe a good Voyager was on my mind. It's a vintage instrument. And I'm going up, and even though I thought, wow, this is hot. Wow, this is smoky. And I would have kept going, except for I couldn't see anymore. And once I lost vision, it's like, okay, this is not going to work out. And then the fire had encircled me. And so it was like raging. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really an interesting way to die. And I had that happen in Alaska. When I was 15, I got knocked overboard by a wave. I was putting away a braille system when you're on a seiner. And I remember, it was taking me down to the bottom. I thought, oh, it's not so bad to die. And miraculous, I got out of that jam. But anyway, so I just put my head down and I ran down the road, fire all over, even on top of the road, because everything was going up. But it burned out my lungs, and I didn't know it. And so I'm in better place now, and with that. But you just don't know. Again, you're playing a game with the external world. And some people may say, well, you're just stupid. No, I was ready to die for this thing. I mean, what the hell? You only live 7 or 8 times. You got to make the most of each incarnation. So yeah, I'm not going to squander an incarnation. So yeah, I'm speaking fairly forcefully. It's just the vibe. But sometimes I think we need rough electric shocks to bring us to our senses about running an organization. Because in healthcare, it's so constipated. It's so bureaucracy. Someone's got to be the laxative and just knock the crap out of it and loosen it up and say, we're not doing meetings like this. We're not going to have meeting hell anymore. We're going to have 2 meetings a week, maybe 1. When we get quality at a certain point, you can cancel all your quality meetings because there'll be nothing to talk about because there's been no complaints. But it's rich, and again, there's a lot of opportunity. And what's it so about? Yeah, it's about quality, but I think the big thing that a CEO has to be about is success. That's the job. Lead us to success. Whatever that means. And that's not always so easy, right? We live in a competitive world, all kinds of things going on. But success is the job, whatever that result is. Obviously, in terms of growth, economics, quality, mission fulfillment. Yeah, and I think that's the hard. Being a person that has developed themselves where they can actually make stuff happen here in C1 consciousness that we find ourselves. This world. A lot of people bitch about this world. This world of dense matter that we have great resistance and obstacle. But that's the whole point. Life is struggle. And so the CEO, being a well-armored person for this world, wise, being able to recognize who you're doing deals with. Are they a high, low consciousness person? Are they the reptilian brain that I'm going to sign a contract with and they're going to have no intention of honoring it? And so they'll, take millions of dollars out of the deal or whatever, depending on your scale that you're working at. Yeah. So success. And in hospice, again, we're a profound person leading profound people doing profound work. And that's so part of it, right? And there's something about success that unites people. Nothing unites people like success, whereas repeated failure tend to discourage people. Let's try this, folks. And with that said, we go in a lot of initiatives and they don't all work out. I'm always, and I think that's part of the reasons why a real leader can't do it in 40 hours a week, because you're thinking about the success of the organization, what is going to get us to the next place or whatever we need to go, because we live in a world of movement. And how are we going to do this? And then you hit plateaus, or you have, you get your teeth kicked in. But that dogged persistence, and that, again, then that's natural. We're getting ready to have a brand new breakout on an epic level. But, man, it's coming through a few natural disasters overcome and kind of a general weirdness even coming into the hospice world. And it's hard to explain there. All I know is that there's been hospice has lost some of its shine, just because we've got more lower consciousness has come into it. And I say that, but I just know that, again, all these billionaire buddies will bring me in for these meetings, because we know more about hospice ops than anybody. I mean, and I'm not trying to be whatever. Who else measures at that level? And has 3 decades of watching this. And that's one thing I'm going to talk to you about from an academic standpoint. I've hired 3 academics that ran business departments at universities and such, thinking that they would probably know how to run something. But they all failed, because there's one thing about theorizing. Oh, this is how you would run the modern organization, third wave management. And, there's a big deal about theorizing and actually spilling blood. When that nurse that's been with you for 26 years has to go because she's not producing the ROI, or you wipe out whole divisions because it's decimating your focus on your main thing you're trying to do. Because if are trying to do a lot of programs, I can tell you right now, you probably don't have very high quality. Because every business segment that you have dissipates quality, focus, attention. Better to run something with fewer elements than more. And more is overrated. And also, it just demonstrates lack of self-control or self-regulation. Since quality is what we're talking about, focus. Well, yeah, duh. I got 50 businesses. Of course, they're all going to be probably, you might have your cancer wing okay, maybe your hospice is going pretty well, your home health. The rest of it's probably going to suck. So, success. Nothing unites a group of people like winning. And we live in a world of what? Incentives and disincentives. And this is one thing, again, if Mulvey comes in and takes a look at your comp systems, how many of you have negative incentives? That is where you take people's pay back. There's the acid test of whether you understand compensation or not. Anyone could throw a carrot out there and say you can make more and live in this goofy half world, but you're missing out on half the value. Because that preserving the negative, like a master teacher would know, your pay system is your number one teaching system. I shouldn't say number one. It's among the top, but perhaps is number one. And you want a system where you don't have to have annual reviews or anything like that anymore. You want people to get their paycheck every cycle and say, oh, that's working out. I think I'll do more of that. Ooh, that's not working. Think I'll do less of that. Thus, they're being taught by every paycheck. There's a report card of how well they're actually doing. But the negative incentive, are they doing the standards, the vows of the organization? Are they doing the quality? And if you have no mechanism to take it back, well, you're gonna get a 50th percentile result. Because why could you expect to get a full result when we're only doing half of the comp system? An intelligent comp system, I should say. And then, of course, I talk about comp a lot. Why? Because I did 38 compensation systems, or I should say, 38 for 38 companies before I ever got into hospice. You know, software, textile mills, country clubs, retail. And it produced, and the first comp system I ever put in was at Winston-Salem, my first hospice gig, where I was the accounting manager, and they said, well, maybe he's got some promise, let's make him controller, CFO. And we had 100% increase in quality and 100% increase in productivity within just a few weeks after I put in the new comp system. And that got me on the national stage, 2,000 people or so in the audience, back at the height of NHO. This was before it was NHPCO. And so there's something to that in the comp system. And so early on, I'm kind of hitting some of the really big things to keep in mind so that we can be percolating on these big concepts, ask the executives we are, and we can have dialogue with each other as we go through, right? As we have this proximity. But the natural world that we sit in, and I purposely have this up on this mountain like this, because we see it's a meritocracy, it's the world of merit. Mama bird doesn't go out and get the worm, baby birds just don't get fed. And so there's the negative, being preserved there. But incentives and disincentives, and that we need both. And reconciling that. Again, the frustrated people are the people that want all good, all light, all sweet, all the time. This world is nothing like that. I got burnt trees every place that tell me it's not like that. Monuments of destruction and ashes. No. There is day, there is night. And no matter how much we want to resist and say that's not right, that there's night, it exists for some reason. Maybe it's beyond our mechanisms or machinery to understand. But somehow we got to play the game or the dance with this external world. And that singular explanations of almost anything are insufficient at best. Why do I say that? Because we live in a multi-world, the multi-view. We don't realize what's happening with every action we have. And that's humbling. Because every topic, every individual is infinite. We're centers of consciousness living in a multi-centered world. All of us are centers being represented there. In a universe without a center. There is no center, folks. We're on a floating planet. Whoa. Just lost everybody there. But, I'm just saying the obvious, Even the ideas of God, no one has ever seen God. I'm building this church down here. It's big, hungry church, or a church dedicated to the reconciliation of this bothness I'm talking about. And this has to do with our thinking. is what I'm really getting at about bothness thinking. We have two hemispheres of the brain. We have the right and the left, one spatial, one concrete. And sometimes we have predispositions towards one if we really study brain chemistry and biology. But this is a physical manifestation or recognition or even reverence of the bothness of life. That half the church will be dark rock, half of it will be light. Male, female, Republican, Democrat, white blood cells, red blood cells, all the politics on every level of life. And just recognizing that's cool. The game house is also representative of opposites. In that, if we have an idea of life a little more playful, well, hell, that gives you kind of a coolness, a little unfazedness. So I got a chessboard, and I won't tell you all the games I play on it, but sometimes if I'm doing a business deal, and usually I've got 4 or 5 going on, I'll plan out almost every move my opponent's going to make. Not that I look at him in a bad way, but success is what it's about. And so much of it comes down to your planning, your intelligence, to observe the patterns of life. Where is the guy going to move his thing? What if he does this? What if he does the, ferocious, attack? Or what if, well, if you've already thought those through, you're not really surprised. You go, oh, he did this play. Okay, well, this is the logical move next. So, anyway. Again, this understanding helps one remain calm, relatively unfazed when trouble comes. And trouble always comes. Trouble always comes. And sometimes it's a meteor out of nowhere, where one moment it's this, and the next your world is in a tailspin. Like when my son drowned, or my daughter got killed in the car wreck, tailspins. Or a hurricane wipes out everything you have. Or the scandal that takes down your business because of some low consciousness individual's moves. Okay. I'm going to keep going here. So, that's where CEO is here. Motivation, or should I say leadership, is the job. Success, our ability to inspire people. Again, are we going to do it via force, via fear? Sometimes you need almost a combination. And I don't tend to do the fear thing so much. You want people to respect you so much that they don't want to disappoint you. I think that's probably where you want to get to. Rather than, so many people rely on what I'll say position power. Yes, I have this title, therefore I can lord over you and tell you what to do. I think that a true leader goes to a place of beingness, where they've elevated their own personal power to a certain place. I am going to reference, we'll see how much time we have, about the idea of even a school. I mean, you want to really just forget about this, quote, nursing shortage. Folks, any hospice I really have anything to do with, we don't have any problem finding clinicians. Why? Why can you get 50 nurses to apply like almost overnight? Because they hate their jobs. Their lives suck. All we have to do is provide them an employment option that's superior to what they already have now. Oh, payoff. Where their lives get better, they learn, yeah, they've got opportunities to make more money than they had before, because if we manage well, we can pay more. But then they have empowerment programs that actually make their experience of life better, because we've introduced new ideas of how to live. All structural moves, for the most part. The art comes into this ability to inspire. we talk about what? Best known success patterns. People, again, we avoid best practices, as a lot of people like to say. It's arrogant. That's where I always question. People don't consider their language or words. So you hear anybody say best practice, they're either stupid or arrogant, because nobody has the whole enchilada. I know, I've been working in hospice, again, over, I hate to say it, it's like only like 30-some years, it's some. I know, I've just scratched the surface of how deep we can go, especially the exploration of human potential. But we get these, which can also be languages, habits, default thinking. We end up with competitive advantage, success, better life, and all this. Okay, assessing leadership. This is one thing we have to do. We have to assess it in ourselves, just like my slip up yesterday. I'll paddle my own posterior pretty hard on that one. And please forgive me. But we have to assess people because we know that we can't do it by ourselves. And no organization can grow beyond the leadership that we have in the organization. Okay, the first thing, you're looking at somebody to promote them because you need great lieutenants, and all organizations are normally short of great leaders. When we were growing the only Baldrige winning hospice, Norm and I, we formed it in the parking lot of a Holiday Inn and just said, hey, if we just take everything that in the MBI world and what Norman knew, put it together, what can we do? Well, we built a hospice that in about 6 years, we were 1,000-something patients. There's two of the worldwide awards of quality, the Deming Award and the Baldrige, and we're the only hospice to ever do that. We beat out Federal Express and stuff as quality in the first year. But it's a grueling process, and I learned so much. And that was Norman's idea. I would never have pushed us to have to take our quality to such elevated heights. And I thought, when I got into, here's your manuals, Andrew, that you need to study. You know, and it's just like, God, there's a lot, you know. Now, MBI was actually doing a lot of it, but that explains all our success. We're all doing patterns of success. That explains wherever we are right now. Because we're in senior, we've had success. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. I know everybody here already has a higher level of consciousness. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I mean, I know that when we have breaks, you're not going to go out and trash the bathrooms, you know. You bring in sometimes clinicians, you don't know what you're going to get. Not to demean them. But, you know, but that's an example of a vision setting extreme standards which demand rigor and a dissatisfaction with everything that's mediocre. But that explains why that grew, why we were able to do the things, and it is the highest valued hospice in the world at that time, given on an ADC basis. Vitas is bigger than us, obviously. And, but it came down to this vision of quality or success, and that inspires people. But what I was getting to here is we stopped growing after 13 sites because we ran out of leaders. And so we developed something called the pipeline. And I've used it at Hope West. Nancy and I saw where, again, we videotape all employees. You have at least 2 videos, structural thing, where they teach. We video them teaching some topic they know for just a few minutes, and then teaching about accountability. And I can go through 1,000 employees in just a few hours, and I can pick, okay, we need to keep our eye on this guy or this gal. Let's put them on the leadership track. We're not going to pay them anymore, but let's start cultivating so that we have at least 2 leaders at every slot, so we have redundancy in the system, that we can grow and will never be hamstrung by limitation in our management and leadership ranks. Again, structural moves. So much about the system solution. So we're assessing those people that are going to be leaders. The first thing, are they intelligent? Do they have the horsepower, the capability? Because it's very hard for a workforce to get behind a leader that they perceive as being as dumb as a rock. I mean, it's like okay, we just had the Green Berets here. If the guy just says, we're going to take that hill, charge, and we all know that half of us are going to get killed. I mean, I need a guy that's going to go, why don't you guys go and create a diversion in the back, and then we'll just sneak up around this way. Well, it's much easier to rally behind that kind of intelligence. Okay? And to me, 2 ways that you can, or a couple ways here that you can find or discover your talented people, because most of the time you do not have to go outside your organization to find leaders. If you're doing that, we're not being very smart. Most of the time I found, unless you need a change agent, that's kind of a different deal. But I found that normally you already have your talent within the organization. It's just we haven't had the brilliance to discover them. Just like another CNA story. This is in Oregon. The gal came out of this really bad divorce. They made her a receptionist. Well, she was great at being a receptionist. Then they said, well, maybe she can be the office manager. Well, we made her office manager. Brilliant. Then let's let her run a clinical team, even though she doesn't have a clinical background, just like I've run clinical teams. Killer. Then the board said, hey, let's just make her CEO. Bam. We doubled the census like that. Capability. And she's a smart cookie. Okay, and how do you find these people? I look at their talent of communication in writing as well as public speaking. Are they articulate? And you can cultivate that by having empowerment programs in the organization to teach public speaking and these things. Because that'll free people, because people can only rise to the level of their ability to communicate effectively. And the next thing is their talent of organization and prioritization. Do they have lists? I won't even hire a person that doesn't do a list, because they're not smart enough. They haven't figured out that they can't keep everything in their minds. A daily list. And then the skill of prioritization, being able to distinguish between lower value things from higher value things, and moving the higher value things to the top unless they're quick kills. That is, things that give us a sense of momentum that we can easily accomplish rather than getting bogged down on something or constipate on something that just takes too much time or energy. But those are giveaways, though. Again, if they're not taking notes, don't hire them. Things will be missed because they've not formed that habit yet. And I think that's the other thing. So much of being a CEO is the creation of habits, default thinking in the workforce. Next, they have a great attitude, can do. Because attitude has so much. It's the only thing we can control. We certainly can't control our thoughts, all this disillusioned thinking about thought control. We can't. We don't even know where our thoughts come in. We don't even know where our decisions come from half the time. But what I can control is my attitude towards the world. I can have a hostile view of it and think it's out to get me, eat me up, the reptilian brain. Or I can say, oh, everything is designed perhaps for my benefit. And this is another thing that you cultivate, because in a workforce, you can have a single distorted personality on a team, and it'll drive your top people out of the company, and certainly lessen the pleasure of working. Best to get rid of that poison. Why not pay people to have a good attitude? Have happiness pay. Well, we've designed that. And an elegant way of getting rid of people with bad attitudes. Next, assessing this person's level of energy, ambition, drive. I mean, a lot of times physically, you know, or are they kind of like El Tanya has the can-do rev up, and that's contagious. Yes. Because people don't want to get behind low-energy people. Not much going on there. Human beings can size up people in seconds. We are very perceptive creatures, a very perceptive species. Four, decisiveness, courage. Nobody wants to be around the pansy. Oh, we're still gathering information all the time. Well, hell, you're never going to have enough information to make the decision. There's the time where you just have to have the balls, or however you want to language. I don't mean to offend people here. Even if it's a bad decision. Now, with that said, we don't want to be stupid in our decision making, just to be decisive. But people have to know you're going somewhere, that you've got a vision, you know where we're going, and then here we go. Rather than, I don't know, you know, I'll need to sleep on it for a few months. I think that's called hibernation.
People are so afraid of failing or making a mistake that they fall into this analysis paralysis deal.
And we see it all over of life. Again, that's 50th percentile is like that. Now, with that said, you say, charge, let's go in this direction. Okay, it's a crapshoot. It's disaster. What do you say? Retreat. And people will get behind that, too. This was a bad idea. And it's just like, okay, I blew my top at the guys yesterday. Bernie went to give me a high fist thing, and I about punched him out. And he's the nicest guy there is. Anyway, but you own it. You know, you own that defect, and people will get behind that too, because hell, people are more forgiving than you think a lot of times. Now, with that said, if I did that all the time, we got issues. So decisiveness. Fifth, a profound understanding of accountability. Okay, accountability is really probably the ingredient of why things get done or don't get done. It's a high spiritual place, knowing that all spiritual paths that are meaningful go through the valley of accountability or the valley of pain if the job or whatever is not being done. If we understand this, we don't need very many meetings, basically, because things just get done. Right. We discuss it, we implement, feedback loop, done. Move on. So how to do, and the skill of accountability of how to do the pain without losing talented people. That's a skill. And so then I say to you as an organization, what is your system of training your leaders to do accountability, to do pain, without wounding them so bad that you lose them? Where do they practice this? Do you practice this on real people? So, oh yeah, we only lost 5 people training that guy or that girl up to be a manager. Or can they do it in a safe place, similar to the perfect visit or perfect phone interactions? 6, an interest in standardization. This is normally not a topic that we're formally taught. I really came more in line with it when, again, going through the Baldrige process. But I can ask most people, and if, what are the steps of standardization? What are the requirements for standardization? What is the position state of self-control? These are basics. And most CEOs and leaders cannot just say, oh yeah, well, it starts out with this, define the standards, documentation, intensive training. Well, how in the hell are they ever going to do standardization if they don't get this? And so every manager, and really every person in the organization, learns the steps of standardization, the requirements of standardization, the position state of self-control, self-regulation. All those things are essential for world class. And then the 7th thing is, when we're assessing for leadership, confidence. And how do I find confident people? Well, you can have all these loony HR people that go off to their little programs of assessing folks. Well, hell, I can cut through it in about 3, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I can find out whether someone has compensation. I say, here's your meager salary, not even enough to live on, and the rest of your pay is based on your performance. And if you can just see it in their eyes, or the shakiness of their hand or whatever, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I got mortgage, yeah, you can do all those things. But I'm asking you, ma'am or sir, are you willing to bet on yourself, your own ability to get results, and are you willing to bet on this organization too? And right there, you smoke out your whiners, your wieners, your fakers.
Yep.
There it is. Because something deep within us, our species, I need to have so many nuts. What if I don't do that? And with this system, they don't even recognize, because they want Pampers, basically. They want a life of Pampers and diapers, where I'm get a guaranteed amount, and whether I do a crappy job because of low accountability or I do a great job. And I just think that you have to think of an organization as just like this natural world, that it's a living organism of all kinds of constituent parts, cells, like cells in the body, all having to perform their specific junction at a certain standard. If one part of it goes down or is hurt, the whole body system is hurt. So it has to be thought of as really this integrated, coherent whole, where there's 0 silos. And your comp system, again, I'll go back to that, which is tied to accountability, is the glue that holds it all together, where people are penalized for non-performance, not doing their job. Whatever the standards are is not allowed, because the whole thing falls apart if we don't have that. Okay, no organization can grow beyond the capabilities of the leader, so that speaks to our lid. If Andrew's here, multi of you can only go here. I can bring all kinds of hot shots and hot rods and hot dogs in. We only go here. Andrew goes within himself, isolates in the woods, dwells in the church, whatever, hangs out with special forces or whatever, learns a few other things, and I go to a different place. Well, then the organization goes to a different place. And that's just the way it is. So no organization can grow beyond the capabilities of the leader themselves, and no leader can build anything of any scale without the help of others. So you can't do it alone. With that said, let's go ahead and take a quick break. I can just feel it.
Thank you for listening. If you need anything further, just go to mbi.life.